Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock, and this is City of Heroes on the Rebirth server. We are with level 45 Quintessence Lass, who has 20 million experience earned, about 2 million to go to get to level 46, 51 million influence, and we're on our story arc for Maxwell Christopher, who says, I've found a bunch of interesting things out about Nosferatu's interrogation. It seems that Nemesis had abducted him specifically for his knowledge of life extension techniques. According to Nosferatu, Nemesis is pretty much a 180-year-old brain and glandular system being kept alive by powered armor, but those remaining biological pieces are dying. Nosferatu hasn't spoken yet about the final end of the project, but we know that part of it was testing that final product against Ricti biomorphing and Cray mind control technology. I want you to hit that same Nemesis base, that same base that Nemesis harvested Ricti technology from. Maybe we can find out what they're doing. So this is a thing where they think that Nemesis, I believe, they're going to think that Nemesis died, but it's going to turn out he probably didn't die because Nemesis never dies. So he's just a brain kept alive in armor because he's been around for a couple hundred years. And we've been in this cave before. In we go. I still can't believe I was able to take out a +3 Nosferatu elite boss. I'm fairly sure that I've had other characters try to do that and not be able to take him out at +3, which just shows you how good the Dark Melee power set is when combined with Energy Aura. And I think it's all down to the debuffing synergizing with the defense and just making it so that Nosferatu just could not hit me that often. Yes, he hit me. Obviously, I fought him for like 2.5 minutes, so he's going to get, I don't know, something like 25 blows in. Some of them are going to hit, even if you've got him floored, at least a few. But and I didn't have him floored, right? But I probably had him down to about a 20% chance to hit. And he hit me infrequently enough that with the heal inspirations I had and this healing, we were able to survive and defeat Nosferatu at +3, which I'm absolutely certain Tiger Strike wasn't able to do. Now, in fairness to Tiger Strike, let's remember, Tiger Strike only had single origin enhancers. I did not give her any sets, ever. She never got them. In fact, this character has so many sets, in part because Tiger Strike didn't bother to get any, and we had all of those reward merits on her that I was able to use with her to buy some of the ATOs that we have now, or we wouldn't yet have completed this archetype set. Because Nightmare Lass had a few, but she didn't have that many reward merits because I'd used them to buy stuff for her already, right? And so it's really just Tiger Strike and the fact that she only had SOs. So she was a little weaker than this character. She was only taking on +2s and not +3s, and I don't think she was able to do a +2 or +3 Nosferatu. But remember that she only had single origin enhancers. So if she'd had sets, she probably would have been able to take him also. But it is true that her primary did not reduce his chance to hit, right? So maybe she wouldn't. I just don't know. And I think Silver Phoenix fought him. I don't remember what we did with her. If anybody remembers, please feel free to leave that comment in the comments section and remind me. I honestly don't remember whether Silver Phoenix was able to defeat Nosferatu at +2 or 3, or whether we had to drop him down. I have the feeling we had to drop him down. And if that's true, then this character is the only one who was able to beat him at +3. Which is pretty awesome and says a lot for these power sets. And just how good they are together. They work really well together. Now, by the way, this isn't to say that that it would not have worked to do Dark Armor. I just happen to like the Energy Aura animations and special effects better than Dark Armor. Not a big fan of Dark Armor. But I can say for sure that Energy Aura synergizes extremely well with the Dark Melee power set, and it is awesome. And I mean, we're at the point now where we can almost do... We can do +4 of everything but elite bosses at this point, and +3 elite bosses. And that is pretty awesome. Now, Of course, like everybody, we do have a weakness to psionic powers, but that's everybody has that except like willpower. So that's not a surprise. And we don't do as well when the boss has psionic powers because we don't have any defense against that at all. But again, that's true for everybody, and Invulnerability Tanker would have just as much trouble as Energy Aura. So we are looking for 2 pieces of information and trying to find clues as to just exactly what it was that the Nemesis guys were after when they invaded this quote-unquote Richty base, which is basically just a cave. Alright, well, I'm not going to worry about him because we don't actually need to defeat all those guys. I mean, we'll beat up the guys we come upon, but we don't really need to defeat everybody. And we got him anyway. Yeah, this is not a defeat all, as far as I know, unless it's one of those ones that trick you. They tell you they're find something, and then it turns out you got to defeat everybody. It doesn't say it in the instructions. Those are fairly rare. And so I don't expect this to be one of those. But you can see that this character is just kicking butt. And this is +4, right? These guys are +4 to me. Now, you miss more often against +4s, but you can see how we are absolutely kicking their butts. We are pounding them. These power sets are so good together. And there is the first thing we're looking for. Are there 2 of them here? No, just one. I thought I saw a second one, but it's this. That's the original. It'd be weird if they were in the same place, since we're only looking for 2. I guess at random, sometimes that sort of thing can happen, but obviously not this time. This is the one we saw coming in. It just ended up on the other side because I turned around. So we got a clue. Biomorphic gel. Yeah, so my guess is, I don't really remember this mission, but I think we have to get some Cray stuff, some Council stuff, and some Richty stuff, and this is the Richty stuff. Let's see if we can find the rest of this content of what we're looking for. Do I hear a glowy? Nope, but I'm gonna have to fight because I aggroed these guys. By the way, these guys are massive amounts of XP. Look at this, thousands and thousands of experience points. Right, this +4, +3 lieutenant is worth 10,000. And just the minion is worth almost 7. Oh, and there is a prisoner. So this story arc, as we finish it, will close out Season 5. And then when I get into the next story arc, we will begin the final season of Quintessence Lass. I can't believe we are already like 45 levels into this character. I feel like I just started her, really. I mean, I know it's been a while. I've been playing for several months. but it's just gone by so quickly, I think, because I enjoy this side of the game, the City of Heroes side. So I enjoy most of the missions. It's not like the Praetorian or villain stuff where I'm, just kind of gritting my teeth through some of the missions because I don't happen to enjoy them. I like all the missions pretty much and story arcs on this side of the game. Like there are individual ones that I maybe don't like so much, but overall I love most of them. And oops, I thought he was dead. And I really have been enjoying both playing Dark Melee and playing the Brute. Brutes are fun. They're almost as good as Scrappers. Scrappers will always be my first love, and I do miss doing crits. I mean, I like watching the damage go up, but I also like doing full damage from the beginning and doing crits. And I do miss the crits. They're fun. And to some degree, I miss martial arts. It'll always be my favorite power set. But I really do love this one. As I said, a while ago, I think my martial arts super reflex scrapper, I give a 10 out of 10. I give this character like a 9.5 out of 10. This has been a great character. Let's talk to Maxwell, who says, if that biogel was used to alter human brains, that might explain some of Nemesis' interest. Then he says, I've been looking into Nemesis and Cray. Cray may be under assault from all sides, but they're still trying to run a business, so when Lockhart Aerotech had to be split up, guess who came in to buy them up? That's right, Cray Industries. So now that we know Nemesis is interested in Cray's mind alteration technology, I did some digging. I want you to find out what Nemesis wants from Cray. So this is where they're going to have us go to each of the places that were visited by Nemesis and kind of work it out and figure out what he's up to. So yeah, if I'm going to score them on a scale of 1 to 10, martial arts super reflex absolutely would be 10 out of 10. Now, to some degree, the experience I've had with the characters has been colored by which side of the game I was on, right? So I didn't enjoy the Praetorian stuff as much, and the first 20 levels of Tiger Strike were therefore not as much fun as they would have been if I'd just been playing on the City of Heroes side. I don't like the villain side as much, and so Nightmare Lass's play was colored by that. But if we don't talk about the experience of the character through all the missions, but we just talk about the way the character played in mission and in combat in particular, right? Because that's mostly what characters are doing. 10 out of 10 for martial arts super reflex. There's no question about that. I give this one 9.5 out of 10. I would give Tiger Strike. I'm only going to rate the ones I've got to 50th level, so that's Claws, Regen. I'd give that a 9. It was a solid set. It was a solid pair of sets, and it was a good play. I enjoyed it. And I loved stalking and sneaking up behind people and just brutalizing them. That was super fun. I definitely give that a 9. And then the Mastermind, I love the pets. I love the special effects of the pets. There were some annoyances with that, mostly due to mission structure, like the escort missions leading people out are super frustrating. Also, there were times when the minions were annoying. I feel like, despite the coolness factor, which was maybe the highest of everyone with the Mastermind, like just super cool visual effects. The demons were awesome. There was a very high coolness factor to that. Maybe the coolest of all of them. Although I do love the Dark Melee animation, so it's so hard to pick. It's like choosing between your children. But I think in terms of the actual play, I would probably give the Mastermind like 7.5 or an 8. Still solid, but not as good as the other three. Just mostly because of the annoyances with the AI and the frustrations with the minions, like just making them do what I want, and the constantly having to resummon them, and the unfortunate fact that part of the way they balanced the class was on the assumption that your little guys were going to have to keep dying and getting resummoned, and I was able to prevent that a lot, but not enough, and the resummoning part was just kind of tedious to me. So I feel like there are a few more negatives to the Mastermind than to the other archetypes that I played. But as you can tell, I mean, I like them all. Right? I thought they were all good to great. And this one is definitely great. This is my second favorite, and I've really enjoyed it. And I feel like I don't think it's entirely a coincidence that in addition to it being just cool power sets and liking the Brute and Scrapper, and they're very similar to each other. Just dive in and beat the crap out of things. I also feel like it's not entirely a coincidence that these two did the full superhero experience on the hero side and not villain or Praetorian. So even though I'm rating them based on how they play, I feel like you can't 100% separate the campaign essentially that they were in from the way they played, because some of the reason that Nightmare Lass was as annoying as she was is because there are a lot more villain stories that require the escorts than there are superhero ones. I mean, it was just over and over again in the villain side, whereas there aren't as many of them on the hero side. Most of the ones there are were retrofitted in. They were like added in later because most of these missions already existed, and the developers, I guess, just went back and changed a couple of them to update them and put ambushes and stuff in them. Whereas the villain side had them pretty much from the beginning. It was one of the sort of additions to the villain side of the game, and so there were more of them. And I think that, and there were a lot more of them in the Praetorian side. And so even though I'm, trying to judge them just based on how they play, to some degree, I think the annoyances that I had with both Tiger Shrike in the first 20 levels in the Praetorian side and with Nightmare Lass were partly based on which part of the game I was playing. And so I might have a slightly higher rating for both of them if I had played them on the hero side. Now, I might also have a slightly lower rating for Quintessence Lass if I played her on the villain side. I don't know, because I'm not going to do that sort of full factorial experiment to see, right? It's not worth doing. Um, I also did some different things. Like, I decided from the beginning with Tiger Shrike that as kind of a proof of concept, if you want to call it that, because so many people seem to feel like you absolutely can't play without sets, that I was going to have Tiger Shrike just use SOs to kind of prove to the internet that you could not only do it, but do it really well and fight +2s and even +3s and you'd be fine. And we were, right? So I decided at the beginning, no sets for her. And so that changes the experience as well. And I did some sets for my other characters and a lot of sets for Silver Phoenix. So, Silver Phoenix had pretty much sets everywhere by the time I was done with her, whereas the rest of these characters have not. So it's sort of hard, because I didn't play them under identical conditions, but I think my ratings are probably still would stand. My favorite's always going to be Martial Arts Super Reflex. That's just my absolute favorite. I love it. But Dark Melee, Energy, Aura has definitely become my second favorite, and Claws Regen, Stalker, third favorite, and then Demon Mastermind, number 4. I really did like Plant Thorn when I played it, but I didn't get it to 50. I only got it to 43 or 4. So I feel like I can't really, it's not fair to judge that because I didn't go all the way with it, and it's been a long time since I played it. I did like it. I did enjoy it quite a lot. My guess is I would have probably given that one a good solid 8 as well, if I got it to 50. Yeah, I have to say that, like, of the archetypes and the power sets that I have actually done, right, and actually played to significant levels, there hasn't been a single one that I haven't liked. At least some, I've liked some more than others, but, there hasn't been any that I've hated, right? And in terms of the archetypes, I feel like I love brutes and scrappers. I like tankers. I have gotten... Oh, I did get a fire ice tanker to 50. That was very good. I would give that one... That was during live, but I did enjoy that one. I'd give that one a 7. Not quite as good as the Mastermind. I feel like I didn't enjoy it quite as much, but it was very good. And there aren't any that I'd give like a 3 that I've ever played. Now, I might give blasters a 3 because I don't even like them enough to play them to 20th level. But that's really just my playstyle more than anything else. I definitely was having fun with the Sentinel on Homecoming, but I never got it past like 22nd level. Um, in terms of archetype, I definitely feel like Stalker Brute, Scrapper Brute, Stalker. Those are my three. I mean, and they're very similar, right? With the Brute being a little more defensive, the Stalker being a little more offensive because of the big hit that they get right at the start, and the Scrapper being kind of in between, a little less defensive than the Brute, a little more offensive than, uh, a little less defensive and more offensive than the Brute, a little more defensive and a little less offensive than the Stalker. Kind of right in the sweet spot, I think, and super fun to play. So yeah, I've really enjoyed this character. I've loved playing her a lot, as you can see. Even though I know where the laptop is, I've been like running around beating things up because it's just fun to run around and beat things up. As Adjerwin, who is one of my guild mates in my former guild, was saying a few months ago, all missions in with her brute are defeat all, because it's just so much fun to run around beating things up that she just beats things up even when she doesn't have to, which is a very brute-like mentality. I like it. Okay, so he says artificial brains, artificial brains. It makes sense, Quintessence last. I think I finally understand. Okay, so we pretty much always knew that Nemesis had heavily modified himself to survive the ravages of time. From Nosferatu, we learned that there was what little left of him was dying, so what's he going to do? He is going to try and create some sort of an artificial repository for his brain, right? And I'm not going to read all of this text because that's what he's trying to do, and now we know that we have to stop him. And let's see, how are we doing on time? 21 minutes. I guess we can do another one. We need to stop Nemesis from making a new brain. So, don't know if this is the final mission. We've got plenty of inspirations. Since we were able to beat an elite boss at +3, I think we're just going to leave it on friggin' +3 and see how we do. I don't know if we have to fight an elite boss at this point, like an elite boss Nemesis. If we do that false Nemesis, that might be a little bit much. But we're just going to have to see through the tunnels and out to Skyway City. I really do love Paragon. It really feels almost like a second home to me. I know the geography and the layout so well in Paragon City. I really feel like this is like almost like a hometown. And I mean, of course, part of it is just because they made it so, they gave it such a high degree of verisimilitude that it feels like a real city. They really did, they've got power stations, and they've got, like, even here, right, newspapers and water fountain and bulletin boards right here in the train station, which is exactly what you would normally see in a train station. And then, of course, they've got the superhero stuff out here, like the trainer and the police drone. It's just so cool. Such a beautifully done game. Can't say enough good things about City of Heroes, guys. I mean, I know I've had my annoyances, and sometimes I'll spend a whole episode complaining about them. But if you add up all the episodes we've shot for all of these 4 characters, doing, it's got to be a couple hundred episodes per character, right? We're talking about maybe, I guess if you add it up, we're closing in on 1,000 episodes, which is probably 500 to 600 hours of City of Heroes. And I've maybe spent 2 of them complaining, and the other, for 3 of them or whatever total hours complaining, and the other 597 has just been sheer fun. So I do really like this game. It's definitely my favorite MMO. I did very much like the original Star Wars Galaxies, and that was a big favorite of mine as well. But City of Heroes I could enjoy by myself, whereas Star Wars Galaxies was really only fun with a group, with a guild. Okay, so this can't be the final guy. So we're going to be facing several false nemeses. And I'm going to get rid of this guy right now. And let's go ahead and buff up. Just get him out of here. Alright, and now we face False Nem. I would really like to create a Champions campaign based on the City of Heroes thematic material. These factions, these villains. I really do like them. Some of the story arcs, they're very cool. But you'd only be able to do it with somebody who hasn't played City of Heroes. So, you know, I wouldn't be able to play it with my best friend because he'd know all these story arcs. I guess, I mean, I could pull a fast one on him and use all these factions, but change the storyline. I don't know if I'd really want to do that, though, given that some of what I really love about City of Heroes is the storyline that they give you in some of these story arcs, like the Nemesis storyline. This is a cool storyline. I like it. Right, so... So I don't know. I've been getting increasingly, frankly, frustrated with Dungeons and Dragons. Not shocking that that would be the case. I will always prefer Champions to any other role-playing game, and there are so many kind of inconsistencies with the D&D rules and imbalances in the way their spells and abilities work. And so much that's illogical. They were trying to simplify it, and I think they did do that in some ways, and in other ways they just made it more complex than it needs to be. But the more I play it, the more I see the warts. This is true with any game, of course, right? That's even true in City of Heroes, right? That the more you play it, the more you see the warts and the imperfections, and there's absolutely no question about that. And there are warts and some small imperfections in Champions, but I'm so used to the Champions warts. I know where they are, and I know how to fix them, or avoid them, or make them not cause trouble in a campaign. And I'm just not aware of some of these in Dungeons and Dragons. And as the characters are getting to higher levels, I think I'm starting to feel more and more kind of uncomfortable with DMing at the high levels. I didn't realize that was going to happen to me, but I'm starting to realize that, gosh, they're just becoming so hard to DM for because of what their characters can do, and they're not even... They can only cast up to 4th level spells. I mean, we haven't gotten halfway through the spells. Once we're at 5th and 6th and 7th level spells, it's going to become really difficult to challenge them. And I wouldn't have that problem in Champions, for sure. And I do find myself sometimes wishing that we were just playing Champions, because I wouldn't have half the problems that I'm having trying to run the game, you know, since I know Champions so incredibly well. And I know exactly how to balance things, and I know how all the powers work, and I would know what to allow and disallow, right? I mean, I would walk into it and say, okay, house rules, or whatever you want to call it, ground rules, no variable power pool, variable advantage, or variable special effects, or variable limitations, not allowed, right? Except with very specific GM permission, and probably just generally not allowed. And the main reason is because those powers can force the GM to have to, or advantages can force the GM to have to make sudden and instantaneous rulings on whether a specific power as written by a player is going to be allowed into the game right now or not. And I don't like that. As a GM, I want to be able to sit and think about it. And so I already know like what to look for and what to like turn off in my game if it's Champions. Whereas with D&D, I often have no idea that what the players are asking for is going to wildly unbalance the game until after it's too late. And yeah, that makes it very difficult. I am enjoying my campaign, the storyline, I think, and the roleplay of the players is great. Their characters are cool and everything. But yeah, I was thinking today, you know, if something were to happen to total party kill the party to wipe the party, or when we get to the end of the campaign. If somebody were to say to me, what the players had said in email and the Discord, I guess they were talking about the possibility of a total party kill in this last session we just had a couple of days ago when they were fighting all the Kuato in the shrine. And by the way, they're not totally done with that, so there still could be a total party wipe depending on how smart or dumb they are. Um, but they were talking about it, and they were like, um, if there is a total party kill, we still want to keep playing. And it sounded like they were saying we still want to keep playing in this world and playing this campaign. Like, we want to find out what happens. And I thought, no, I would probably not be amenable to that. I would probably say if you guys want to keep playing and nobody, if first of all, I would say, does somebody else want to DM? Because I've done it for over a year now, and I think it's somebody else's turn. If no one wanted to do it, I'd be willing to continue being the game master, but I don't think I would want to continue with this campaign. I feel like I made a lot of mistakes starting out, and I would want to correct those. And at this point, I actually think I might say if I'm the game master, it's going to be something other than D&D. So you guys have to decide if you want to play D&D, then one of the people who wants to DM for D&D needs to take over. Otherwise, it'll be a different system. And, Champions 4th edition, I will not do any other edition. I would be willing to do 2nd edition, but I can't imagine anyone but me would. And 2nd edition has some issues that were cleaned up in 4th. I won't go past 4th since it's the last edition that Steve Peterson and George MacDonald, the original authors of the game, were involved in. They didn't write the whole thing because it was co-written between them and Rob Bell, who also was the editor of that book, because he had kind of taken over as like editor-in-chief of Hero Games at that point. But there was enough Steve Peterson and George MacDonald in that book that I'm willing to use it. The other books are not written by Peterson and MacDonald, and I want no part of them. So I would say we could do 4th edition Champions. I would be willing to try Savage Worlds, although I would want to use a Savage setting and some of their written material. I wouldn't want to make up a whole campaign myself, so I would say, we could do Deadlands, we could do East Texas University. I feel like some of my players would not want to do that. I would be certainly willing to try Call of Cthulhu, although I've never played it myself, and there would be a lot of learning. I would be perfectly willing to try it because it just seems friggin' cool. And I would say let's do some short adventures with that, and be willing to make up new characters and try new things because this will be the first time we've ever played it. Same with Savage Worlds, probably. Although I feel like I've seen enough Savage Worlds that I could probably run an East Texas University game. And I probably could run a Deadlands game if I read up enough on it. But Call of Cthulhu, I've never really seen anybody play, so that would be really rough to start. But I'd be more than willing to try it, although my preference would really be to play Savage Worlds or Call of Cthulhu. I just don't know anybody who's willing to run a game. So, I would be willing to try Savage Worlds, Call of Cthulhu, play Champions, 4th edition, no problem. I'd actually be willing to try Lion and Dragon, which is medieval authentic role-playing. I think that might be really cool. I would be willing to play D&D 1st edition, potentially. But I don't think I have any further interest in playing 5th edition D&D. I feel like they just have made the PCs way too powerful, and to the point where there's just almost no point to even challenging them at the upper levels. And they just made the game too easy, I feel like. And I don't feel like, from what I've seen, Savage Worlds is easy. And I know for sure Champions would not be easy if I were the GM. Absolutely not. Probably my best comfort zone, well, certainly my comfort zone would be Champions. But I would be willing to try any of these other games. And, Lion and Dragon, of course, brutal game. I would be willing to try that. I've heard Stars Without Number is really good, and then there's a fantasy version called Worlds Without Number. I'd be willing to try almost any of those. I was Potentially interested in Dungeon Crawl Classics because I really liked the way character creation worked in that game from what I saw of it in the one video I was watching of it and what I've read about it. But I feel like that game is a little too gonzo for me, and I'm not a real big fan of gon. I prefer more serious and less absurdist gameplay. As I've said, I think I mentioned before, my friends and I tried a comedic, satirical, like Justice League International style of champions at one point, and it was super fun for like a couple sessions, and then I was like, yeah, I'm done. I want to go back to normal serious champions, where they're actually the heroes are serious and are not like being stupid and clumsy. And yeah, I actually remade my character because I started out with this guy who was like he had like a bag of tricks. He was like a magician. He had a bag of tricks, and he would pull all this sort of goofy stuff out of it. And it was kind of a variable power pool idea. And I just decided, nah, it's just too much. And then I made up, I think, Dove from the comic books because she was a bit of a wisecracker in the comics. So I figured, well, she could kind of fit, but she was way less humorous and way less funny than all the other characters. And I don't know that she really fit. But it's just, yeah, doing comedy and satire is really not my thing. I prefer a serious campaign. Call of Cthulhu obviously is. Savage Worlds can be, and my champions would be for sure. So I don't know. Not sure what other role-playing games there are that I would want to try. I've actually just ordered and just received. It's downstairs in my garage, waiting for me to open it. Just received, I think, today or yesterday in the mail. Today. Scarlet Heroes, Lion and Dragon, the books. I have the PDFs and a reprint of Champions 4th Edition that I was able to get from Drive-Thru RPG. The main reason I have that reprint is although the pages in my Champions book are beautiful, the binding has been destroyed since like the year after I bought it, like in 1990. So all the pages are falling out, and it's just kind of frustrating to turn the pages and look stuff up because they just fall all over the place. And a friend of mine here said, "Oh, you just have to get it rebound. I know somebody. I'll give you a name." And I bugged him a couple times over email, and he never gave me the name. So I haven't been able to get it rebound. And I've tried looking locally on Google, but I haven't found anybody that I would trust. I need to find somebody who's going to keep the original cover. I don't want the cover destroyed. I just want the binding fixed. And I know it can be done because they used to do the binding repairs in the library when I worked there at a public library in my town. And gosh, I was a fool because I was in college when the binding of this book fell apart, and I should have brought the book downstairs to the ladies who did the book binding and asked them to do it for me, and I know they would have. And they could have fixed it for me, and it would probably still be good if they had done it because they were really good. And they fixed many a book, and they would have probably been able to do it for me. But yeah, I didn't think of it because I was in college at the time, and when I was in college, I was still working for the library at night, and all the ladies who worked there knew me, and I had been working there a long time, so they knew me well. Um, yeah, in fact, true story. When I graduated high school, it was high school. When I graduated high school, my mom wanted to get me something for graduation, and I think I asked for it. I can't remember if she just decided to get it. I had become a huge fan of Tennyson, Alfred Tennyson, the poet, and there was a book in the library called something like The Complete Works of Alfred Lord Tennyson. It was a hardcover book. It had been published some years earlier, and I really liked it. And I checked it out of the library several times. And so I don't know if my mom saw it like on my desk and said, "Would you like to have something like that or what?" But she decided she wanted to get it for me. And the problem was it wasn't available in any bookstores. So she must have called the library and talked to the librarians. And although it wasn't available, I guess, to the general public, there must have still been a library print of it somehow available. and they were able to get hold of it. So they basically ordered it, and I don't know how they worked it, right? Because it's a public library, they ordered it kind of for the library, and somehow my mother gave them the money for it. I'm not sure how they worked it out, um, but they managed to get hold of it. And but it was a while later. It didn't happen right at my graduation. It was like a month later. The lady who was the head of the adult library, I heard her call my name. I was upstairs in the balcony where the nonfiction section was putting books away. She called my name, and I looked down at her and I said yes, and she held up this book, and it didn't look anything. It had a different cover. It didn't look anything like the one that I had been used to reading. And I said, "Yeah, what's that?" And she said, "Didn't your mother tell you?" And I was like, "Oh, that's the book." And then she said something that was really nice. She said, "Would you like me to have them cover it for you?" So the way our library worked at the time was that all the books that they purchased and they had in the stacks, they would wrap in this like plastic sort of cellophane covering to protect them, right? And then put them on the shelf. So it was like a book cover that protected the actual paper decorative cover of the book that went over the hard binding. And they said, "Yeah, sure, I would love that." So they actually did that for me. She took it downstairs. And the same ladies that do the binding did that. That's why I said I know they would have done the binding for me on my book, because they did this one on Tennyson for me. And so my mom bought me this really nice, expensive, I don't know how much she had to spend on it, Tennyson book, and I treasured it. I still have it. I love it. I did get annoyed. A couple of years later, I had a cat, and the friggin' cat chewed the corner of the book, which really irritated me. But other than that, to this day, it is in beautiful, pristine condition. Um, and so when I was in college, I had a literary masterpieces professor who was a bit of a snob and kind of annoying. And it was literary masterpieces too. And he said you have to pick a poet. I don't remember if it was a poet or an author, and you had to read some of their works and comment. So I said I'd like to do Tennyson, and he said okay. And I decided I was going to compare and contrast um, In Memoriam, which is Tennyson's most famous and longest poem, with Locksley Hall. And I don't know if he realized that I knew what I was talking about, but Locksley Hall was the first poem of Tennyson's I ever read, and I absolutely adored it. I also loved Charge of the Light Brigade, and The Lady of Shalott is probably now my favorite. But I had read In Memoriam and I had read Locksley Hall, and they were written at different times about similar themes from a different angle. And I don't know if he realized it. He certainly probably didn't expect me to realize it. And I don't think he had any understanding of like just how much I knew about Tennyson, because I owned this book and I had read most of the poems and a lot of the notes and stuff, because it was a cool book, and over the summer and stuff I would read it. So he said, "Sure, you can read it." And so the one day I had a lot of free time in on the campus, so I brought the book with me, and I was reading it in between classes, and I can't remember why, but I ended up having it out on my desk in the English class. And so the Tennyson book was out there, and he saw it, and he probably thought it was a library book. And because it looked like a library book, because it had that kind of cover. And he said, "How are you liking it?" And I said, "Oh, this is mine. I already knew I liked Tennyson." And he looked at it, or I think he picked it up, and he said, "Yeah, you must really like it. Look how nice the pages are." Kind of like, he's sort of sarcastic. I guess you love it since the pages are nice and crisp and brand new, as if I had never read through the book. And I'm looking at him like, "You idiot. This was a graduation present from my mother. I'm going to keep it in beautiful condition for as long as I live, because it was a graduation present from high school from my mom." And so, yeah, he thought because I hadn't dog-eared the pages and written notes all over it that I hadn't really read it. I'm like, I treat it with the utmost respect, like a comic book that's worth money, like it's a $25 comic book, because it's a book that A, I know I'll never be able to get again, and B, was given to me by my mom for graduation and was ordered for me by the ladies at the library who I had known for years. It's a memory, so I'm going to keep it in nice condition. But he thought because I hadn't, made a mess out of it, that I hadn't actually read it. I wonder if he was shocked at the paper I produced, because it was pretty good, I'm sure, and it definitely showed that I knew Loxley Hall and In Memoriam. And heck, when I was in high school in creative writing class, we had been asked to do some assignment or other, and in creative writing, and somebody had asked the teacher, "Can you write a poem?" And he said, "Sure." And I was like, "Okay, I'm going to write like a sequel." So Loxley Hall was written at one point, and then, believe it or not, like a sequel, Tennyson wrote another poem called Loxley Hall 2, 60 years later, or something like that. And so I wrote a third one called Loxley Hall 3, Into the Next Century. And it was like a 20th century version of Loxley Hall, and I followed his rhyme scheme, and I repeated many of his themes, but modernized them and changed some of the references, and made like an apocalyptic aliens are invading the earth kind of poem, because Tennyson's is sort of like World War, he's sort of predicting World War before the World Wars happened, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to predict interplanetary war, because the planetary wars haven't happened yet, right? And hopefully won't, but in science fiction terms, they probably will. And so I think my creative writing teacher was probably floored, because he had no idea, as a lover of Tennyson, that I knew that much about Tennyson and was that familiar with the themes that I could write a sequel to the first two Loxley Halls. I wonder if I still have that on a file somewhere, or in physical files somewhere. I might, because I do still have some of my old writing. So yeah, I think that this Lit Masterpieces professor was probably really shocked that I did such a thorough and familiar explanation and account of both In Memoriam and Loxley Hall, which are poems that at the time I had large chunks memorized, just because I loved them. And at one point, I don't know if I could still do it now, and I won't. I won't try. I used to know all of The Lady of Shalott and all of The Charge of the Light Brigade from start to finish. And also a fan of Poe. I have a really nice book of Poe's it's illustrated by Greg Hildebrandt, who used to be a big fantasy artist in the 80s and the 90s, and it's beautiful, beautiful book with lots of his short stories and many of his poems. And I had The Raven and Dreamland committed to memory too. Big fan of certain types of poetry, and especially Poe and Tennyson, like them both. How did we get talking to that? Oh, binding on my City of Heroes book. So yeah, getting back to the binding, I ordered a soft cover, because it's the only one available, which annoys me, but a soft cover copy of the 4th edition Champions Rules from Drive-Thru RPG, because you can't get it from Hero Games anymore. It's out of print. And I just wanted to have a copy that I could leaf through without the pages all falling out. Now, I am aware that and I could see it in the PDF file, that the PDF is not as super nice and clean as the ones from more modern books, or even as the D&D ones that I've got. It's a scan, so it's not going to be super clear, but it's legible, and it may not be pretty, but it's legible, and the pages won't fall out. And as a bonus, I now have a PDF of it, which means that if by some miracle someday the people I'm playing with, or some other people, want to play Champions 4th Edition with me, I can share the PDF with them if I have to. If they don't have any way to access the book, say in the future, if it's taken off of Drive-Thru RPG. If it's not, I would say buy the PDF, right? Because it's $10. It's not that expensive, or $15, something like that. You don't have to buy the physical book. But if it turns out someday that the PDFs, that the book is no longer available, it's out of print, Hero Games is gone, I've got the PDFs forever, which is nice. I could always reprint them myself if I have to at a printer's. I like having permanence, right, for things that I love. I don't like it when they can be taken away from me. Same reason I always, even when I get an electronic version of a movie or a TV show, if possible, I always try, even if I had to pay extra, to get the physical medium as well, just so that if it ever transpires that the electronic one becomes unavailable to me, I still have the physical one. Of course, you're going to need a reader. Someday there won't be DVD players, I guess, but hopefully that will be a long time from now. And so as long as those last another 20 or 30 years, it won't matter to me after that. Because I don't think I'm going to live that much longer. Okay, so he says we shut down the operation, but since there was no sign of the artificial brain itself, whether we stop them from making it at all in one, or whether it's too late, Nemesis already has it, we don't know. Well, it's clearly not the end of the story arc, because there's still a little book icon next to your name. So we will find out what happened to Nemesis in the next episode, probably. I feel like we're getting, from my memory, I feel like we're getting toward the end, and given the amount of text, it probably is going to be another mission or two, and then we will be done. But that will happen in the next episode. Until then, folks, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been City of Heroes on the Rebirth server.